Hi, kindergartners, and welcome to day 3, learning all about worms. Yesterday, we learned about all the different parts of a worm. Today, we're going to learn about something new. But before we jump into our new stuff, I want us to review the parts of a worm and what all of those things help the worm to do. So, the very first part of the worm I want to review is in the front of the worm, called the mouth. Very good. The mouth is what the worm uses to eat its food. Awesome. Moving on down the worm, let's review this next part of the worm. This is the part of the worm, remember? It looks kind of like rings around the worm, and it's the fatty part in between the rings. This is what helps the worm to move. Do you remember what it's called? The segment. Very good. Let's keep moving on down our worm. Next is the part of the worm that helps it to grow its babies. Do you remember what this part's called? It's a segment, but remember it's a special segment because it's a little fatter, a little thicker than the rest of the segments. It's called the clitellum. Awesome. Let's say that word one more time. Ready? Clitellum. And the last part of the worm that we talked about is at the way end of the worm. It's at the very back side of the worm called the tail. Awesome work. So today, boys and girls, we are going to be talking about something really interesting. But before we get started, I have a secret to share with you. A couple weeks before we started our distance learning journey, me and Miss Ronigan got a few new pets. Can you guess what some of those new pets were? You guessed it. They were worms. We got a whole big, huge tank of worms, and me and Miss Radigan have been keeping them a secret in between our rooms for so long. But to keep those worms nice and healthy and alive, me and Miss Radigan had to talk about what do worms need to live? How do you take care of a worm? We had no idea. So we had to do some research, and that's what we're learning about today. We're going to be talking about what a worm needs to live. So before we talk about what a worm needs to live, I want you to think in your brain, what are some things that people need to live? What are some things that you and me, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, what's something that your friends need to live? Just think in your brain for a few seconds. What is one thing that you need to live? Whisper it to me. Tell me your idea. Oh, that is a good idea. So I'm going to move these boxes and I want you to whisper to me what you think each one of these pictures shows. So these are things that people need to live. Let's take a peek at this first one. Do you know what that word says? That says air. Boys and girls, people need air to breathe. If you don't breathe, you can't live. Let's all take a really deep breath in. Ready? That is some nice, refreshing air. So people need air to live. What else do you think we need to live? Let's see what this clue is. Oh, a house. Boys and girls, people need shelter to live. We need shelter because, could you imagine, especially in Minnesota, being outside and it's snowing? Could you imagine staying outside in the snow and the cold? Would you be ever able to live? No, you would get too cold. Or could you imagine in the summertime when it gets really, really hot outside and you are sweaty and hot and you can't cool down? Could you imagine staying out in that heat all the time? No, it'd be so uncomfortable and you couldn't live like that. That's why people need shelter. Or let's see what this next clue is. Oh my gosh, boys and girls, what do you think that picture is? Does he look like he is awake? No. Does he look like he is playing? No. He's sleeping. Friends, people need sleep to live. I want you to think in your brain. Have you ever met anybody who doesn't sleep? No, that is silly. Everybody needs sleep to live. That's how your body resets and gets more energy for the next day. If you don't sleep, you don't get your energy back, and you can't live with no energy. Let's see what the next one is. That is food. You need to eat food every single day. You need to eat healthy food, especially your body tells you that you're hungry and that you need food when your stomach starts to growl and be scratchy, and sometimes your belly can feel kind of empty. That's a signal your body gives you that you need to eat food so that you can keep living. All right, last thing. Let's see what it is. Water. Boys and girls, you need water to live. Your body is made out of tons of water. And you know, when you're outside and you're playing on your bike, or maybe you're running around the neighborhood, you're getting all hot, and sometimes you start getting sweaty. That sweat is coming out of your body to try and cool you down so that you don't get too hot and so you don't get sick. But if you sweat out all of your water, are you going to have any water left in your body to keep you cool? No. That's why it's so important that you drink plenty of water all the time. So that way your body can stay nice and healthy and you can stay alive and living and feeling good. So, boys and girls, the 5 things that people need to live are air. Let's take a big deep breath in. Ready? The next thing is shelter. Say that word with me. Ready? Shelter. The next thing is sleep. Everyone pretend like you're sleeping. Ready, set, go. Great job. The 4th thing that people need is healthy food. Everyone say, Yummy. It's almost lunchtime here and I am hungry. The 5th thing that people need to live is water. Everyone pretend like you're drinking out of a glass of water. Glug, 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 glug. Awesome sauce. Those are the 5 things that people need to live. Now, we're not learning about people for science. We're learning about worms in science. So I want you to think in your brain, do worms need some of these things too? Well, I have some news for you. Me and Miss Ronigan did research because remember, we had to learn how to keep these worms alive, and we know what worms need to live. So we're going to go over some of these things. If you think a worm needs this to live, I want you to nod your head like this. If you think they don't need this thing to live, I want you to shake your head like this. So if you think they need it, nod. If you don't think they need it, shake. Ready to give it a try? So, do you think a worm needs air to live? Show me with your body. Yes? No. I have news for you, boys and girls. Worms do need air to live. So I'm going to move this word yes right on up there. Yes, worms need air to live. Worms are living things. They're animals, and all animals breathe air to live. The next thing. Do you think worms need a house to live? Do you think they need shelter? That's pretty interesting. I have a fun fact for you, boys and girls. Worms live in the ground. They live in the dirt and the soil. And that is their house. That's their shelter. When they feel scared or when they need to find new food, they just go further down into the ground to stay nice and safe. It's kind of like if you are feeling scared outside, you go back into your house to feel nice and safe. Worms use the ground as their house. So, yes, they need a home. They need a house and shelter to stay nice and safe and happy and living. The next one, do you think worms need food to live? Do you think worms get hungry? I have news for you. They sure do. They get hungry too. The fun things about worms, though, is they don't eat normal food like us. They don't eat burgers and fries, but they do eat something called compost.
Compost is a type of fertilizer that's made out of organic materials. Organic materials means that it's things that can be broken down or things that can rot. So any fruits or vegetables that you didn't eat at lunch, that can turn into compost. Or any leaves that are left over from the fall in your yard, that can also be compost.
The next thing, do you think that worms need water to live? Have you ever seen a worm drink water? Or do you think that they drink water? I have news for you, boys and girls. Worms do need water, but they don't drink water like people do. They need water to keep their skin nice and smooth and slimy and gooey because worms actually breathe air through their skin. Isn't that crazy? But They can't breathe through their skin if their skin gets too dry. And it also helps them when they move, because if they get too dry, they get kind of crunchy, and then their segments can't move together and apart well enough for them to move. So they need water to keep them slippery and breathing and moving. So yes, they do need water. The last one, do you think worms need to sleep? Have you ever seen a worm sleep before? Maybe, but I did some research and I learned that worms don't need sleep. They don't sleep like people do. When we go to bed, we close our eyes and we sleep hard and we sleep for a long time. But worms don't do that. If worms need to rest, they just stop moving and they just sit. They just sit and hang out. They don't close their eyes. They don't have dreams. They just rest. So they don't need sleep, but sometimes they do need rest, but they don't need sleep. So this one's a no. Nope. Awesome. So the 4 things that a worm needs is air. Let's take a deep breath in. Ready? They need shelter too, but remember, worms don't live in houses. They live in the dirt and the soil. That's their house. They need dirt and soil to live to keep them safe. They need food, but remember, they don't eat a meal like people eat. They eat compost. The 4th thing that worms need to live is water, but they don't drink the water. No, they need the water on their skin to make sure that they can keep breathing through their skin and so that they can keep moving through the earth. Awesome. So those are the 4 things that a worm needs to live. For your seesaw activity today, you are going to circle the 4 things that a worm needs to live. So let's go through this seesaw activity today and see what those 4 things are. At the top, it says, what do red worms need to live? Circle the items that red worms need in order to live. This first one with the hamster. That's exercise. Do you think worms need exercise to live? No, I've never seen a worm do a workout, so we're not going to circle that one. This next one is a glass of water. Do you think worms need water to live? They sure do. Remember, they use that water on their skin to keep them breathing and moving. So we're going to go ahead and circle that. The next one, do you think they need a fish bowl to live? No. Do worms live in fish bowls? They do not. This bottom one, this is actually dirt or soil. Do you think a worm needs dirt or soil to live? They sure do. Remember, the dirt and the soil is where they live. So that's their shelter or their home. That's where they go when they need to feel safe. So they definitely need that dirt and that soil. The next one, the cloud at the top, that is air. Do you think worms need air? Do you remember? They do need air. Remember, they breathe just like humans do, except they don't breathe using their mouths. They use breathing their skin. Awesome. The next one, do worms need cat food? No, they don't eat cat food. Silly. Do they need a bed to sleep in? No, remember, worms don't sleep. They just rest. They don't need sleep. We're not going to circle that one. The last one, that's a compost bin. Do worms need compost? They sure do. Remember, worms eat compost, and they need to eat to live. Awesome. So those are the 4 things that a worm needs to live. We circled the water, the soil, the air, and the compost. Awesome.
All right, friends, now it's your turn. Go into your Seesaw app, click on Activities, and find the science activity for today. When you're done circling the 4 things the red worm needs to live, press check so we can make sure that you're understanding what a worm needs to survive. I hope you had a fun time today. I can't wait to keep learning about worms with you.